Hello and welcome to the Lawyer's Life podcast, episode number 1. My name is Bradley Balin. I defend entrepreneurs in New York City for a living. Today, I would like to educate you for a minute about office leases. Office leases are among the worst contracts you can inflict on a lawyer, and that's for 4 reasons. Those 4 reasons are the lease itself, you, the broker on the other side, and the landlord on the other side. The first thing is the lease itself. There are some contracts that lawyers love and tenants love, such as residential purchase and sale contracts for real estate, or non disclosure agreements, or operating agreements for a limited liability company with 1 or 2 members. And the reason for that is these are relatively standard documents. The lawyer can give a flat fee representing somewhere between 1 and 4 hours of their time, depending on what the agreement is. The lawyer will make money on it, and the tenant is not going to feel, I'm sorry, the client is not going to feel that they were unreasonably charged. An office lease is exactly the opposite of that. An office lease is usually somewhere between 50 and 120 pages long. It's usually single spaced. It's usually a 10-point font. It often is written in Shakespeare's English. It's often a complete mess because it consists of paragraphs that were copied and pasted over the last 100 years from one lawyer to the next, and then the contract was reused on various deals. So the contract is carrying around pages and pages worth of language that's completely irrelevant, and there's randomly language missing that really does need to be there. And it strips the tenants of just about all of their legal rights. So in addition to having run-on sentences that sometimes go on for an entire page. So to say that it's 10 hours of a mind-breaking, head-pounding headache to get through the typical office lease, which is never standard in any way, shape, or form, would be making an understatement. Reviewing an office lease and doing a good job of it is nothing short of hell most of the time. I would much rather be screaming at my adversary in a litigation over an office lease in the hall while the judge is waiting to find out if we settled than sitting there trying to get through one of these office leases to begin with. So, yeah, these are really bad. And oftentimes, the next biggest problem is you, the client. The reason why is because you don't understand what's involved in it. And the lawyer understands that nobody is willing to pay for 10 hours of attorney time to review the office lease. So the attorney will oftentimes reduce the number of hours that the attorney charges for in order to take care of this potential client who does not understand what kind of a risk they're in and get the job done for them. But do you typically appreciate that? No, you typically come back at the lawyer and say, 5 hours? That's insane. Couldn't you do this in 2 hours? And the lawyer chokes back his or her anger and says, no, I could not do this in 2 hours. Even 5 hours is a near impossibility, but I'm giving you a discount on that. You then turn around and say, okay, I can live with that. Not thank you, counsel. That's very generous of you, but I can live with that. Can you have this done by this afternoon? Okay, 10 pages of mind-breaking reading. Can I have it done by this afternoon? No, I cannot have it done by this afternoon. All right, fine. I'll give you till tomorrow morning. Can you have this done by tomorrow morning? Well, something this complicated, I really should not start now and read this until 7 o'clock in the morning because I'm going to be exhausted and make $100,000 mistake. So, no, I really can't. In fact, I'm going to make this a top priority because I know you're in a hurry. So, I need 2 or 3 days for this. You say, "What? 2 or 3 days to review an office lease? I know a lawyer who would do it in 2 hours." I spoke to someone who would do it. Well, how are they going to do that? By telling you that everything's fine. Doesn't even matter what it says. Just give me $400, give me $800, and I'm going to sell you down the river and just tell you that everything's fine. I'm not going to do that. So instead, I'm going to have to try my best to explain this to you. The next problem is other over and above the fact that you're in a massive rush and don't necessarily understand what I need to deal with is the broker on the other side. The broker is going to make 50, 70, $100,000 commission when you sign this thing. So the broker will lie through their teeth and say anything to get you to sign the contract and to get me to sign off on the contract. So now I've got the broker literally calling me every hour on the hour, asking me what's the problem, what can they do to fix it, when do I think I'm going to review it, how much work have I done so far, telling me the landlord is furious, that I'm the worst lawyer ever, that I have not reviewed it yet, that this is a completely standard lease, and they've never seen a lawyer need to read a standard lease before, and then calling you and telling you that I'm not doing any work, that I'm killing the deal, that the landlord is about to give it to someone else if this isn't signed by the end of the day, and otherwise trying to get me to not do my job as an attorney. So I oftentimes am unable to communicate with the broker because the broker is torturing everybody in order to get their commission. Next, I have to deal with the landlord. The landlord usually gives us a contract which is so one sided that on a whim, they can hold you in default and accelerate all of the rent that's due, lock you out, rent it to someone else, and then go after you personally for the full balance for the remaining term of the lease. Because leases are so biased towards the landlord, I can't reverse that entire situation or you'll never have an office lease. The best that I can do is be as nice as possible and try and negotiate a whole pile of very small changes that don't really give you much power, but at least allow you to survive for another day when you have a problem so that we can rush in for an emergency injunction if we need to and stop the landlord from doing hideous, terrible things to you while we try to put up some kind of a defense or try to protect ourselves in some way or another. So this leads you to ask the logical question, why would you ever even want to do an office lease? And the answer is, I don't want to under any circumstances, but I'll do it if you're a current client of mine, or I believe you're likely to become a current client of mine because we have a good relationship during this whole lease issue, which happens a lot of the time, because then I don't want to have you handing me my own work and asking me why is the landlord threatening to evict over this and evict over that and asking for all of these charges that you didn't know about and so on and so forth. So I'm paving my own future by making sure that you're as protected as you can be in the lease and that you understand as well as possible what it is that you're signing. Otherwise, if you have an attorney that you love and your attorney just told you he or she doesn't do office leases, go get somebody else, and I'm the somebody else, and you want to pay for a few hours of time, then it may not be worth it to me to take it on because of all of the things that we just discussed. So I hope, having heard this, you'll at least have a little bit of understanding and compassion on whatever attorney has to deal with that new office space that you're so excited about. Thank you. And if you have any questions, you can reach me at brad@bailinlaw.com, BRAD at BAILYN law.com. Goodbye.